Welcome to the Pride of Detroit POD cast. Pride of Detroit. You know what? Let me start that again. That's not enough energy. We got to take this energy up more. Ford Field, Detroit Lions fans. Welcome to the Pride of Detroit POD cast. PrideofDetroit.com. Pride of Detroit on Twitter. Pride of Detroit on Facebook. You know where to find us because we're right here live on twitch.tv/Pride of Detroit, youtube.com/at Pride of Detroit, where you find all the video content on YouTube right now. Yes, we're here. We needed a bit of we had a false start there. We put it back together. Boom. Because we've got a lot to talk about after an insanely exciting night at Ford Field to open the season. A lot to talk about from Lions Rams Sunday Night Football, and we needed extra football to resolve this one, baby. We really needed an extra dose of football to resolve a playoff rematch, what's quickly becoming a grudge match between the Detroit Lions and between the city, more than just the Detroit Lions, the city of Detroit and Matthew Stafford. I feel like at this point, I hate kind of how this has gone, but it's also kind of funny. We're going to talk a lot about this, and we've got a lot of different takes about this game because, damn. I'm Chris Perfett, the adequate host at Chris Perfett on Twitter. Thank you all who tuned in last night for the post-game stream. Someone redeemed the Olive Garden shirt already from our Twitch audience, so it's on. I found it. I washed it. We're good. At Chris Perfett on Twitter. Thank you all. Jeremy Reisman, the fearless leader at Detroit Online. Jeremy, I think Jeremy is finally getting his hearing back.
Yeah, the ears maybe have stopped ringing. I've gotten a little bit of sleep, but yeah, it was the night lived up to the billing in a way that you kind of wondered a little bit if things were going to drop off a little bit from the playoff excitement in the city, and I think Sunday night taught us that no, that it is still Lions fever all around Detroit, and it was very nerve-wracking game for sure, but ultimately everyone got to go home happy, and I can't wait to do it all again next week.
Ryan Matthews at Ryan_POD. What's up, Ryan?
Living, I kind of miss the times where the Lions were bad and 1 o'clock
you don't.
football.
Oh, okay, just that part.
Yeah, I think that we get the early windows and stuff, but no,
Yeah.
we're prime time.
Prime time and overtime. Lots of time, all the time. So let's spend this time talking about the Detroit Lions, shall we?
Let's talk about it. 26-20, your final score in Detroit, and you needed overtime. We had this game last year against the Seattle Seahawks where the Lions need overtime. Very similar situation where the Seahawks were down a lot of their starting offensive line as well. The Rams quickly became a walking mash unit. We're going to talk about that's part of the story, I feel like, from both the Rams and the Lions perspective, and losing Puka Nacua into that game. I think there was news today that Puka Nacua is going on in IR, so this might have been a really bitter pill for the LA Rams. But it doesn't matter. The Lions ended up, in spite of some turf monsters, making key plays. Jamison Williams, a huge story in this game, almost 130 yards and one bomb of a touchdown to really get the young man going. Very excited about that. And Kirby Joseph picking off Stafford in the end zone. But what really set the mood, I felt, was overtime. Because up until that point, the Lions came out strong. I think this is a lot of the same Lions we had seen last year. Third quarter offense looking anemic. I got to give some credit to the Los Angeles Rams. I think they schemed up their weaknesses in how to attack the Lions offense perfectly. You took away Amon-Ra St. Brown. You took away the middle of the field. You forced the Lions to really lean more on their run game and kind of run a lot more east-west than north-south at points with Jahmyr Gibbs. You needed them to go to Jamison Williams to really take the top off, but they played you hard up front. I was warning people all along. I thought Jared Verse was a very good pickup for them. Kobe Turner is very good for the Rams. And on the offense side of the ball, when their offensive line became a walking mash unit, they did exactly what you needed to, which was force the ball to Cooper Kupp and get it out very quick. But all of that wilted away when you got to overtime because Dan Campbell had one ace up his sleeve in that David Montgomery, who had been a bowling ball to start the game, was well rested and just, in the words of the Georgia Tech coach, run the ball. There was one pass on that one drive in overtime, and really it was to Jahmyr Gibbs in the back behind the line of scrimmage, so it was really just kind of getting it out for another running play anyway. It was just bully ball, Neanderball. Just screw your analytics, screw your extra plays. Ben Johnson, Dan Campbell just said, we're running it down their throats. They're tired. They can't handle this. Boom, 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 boom. And that gear, that second gear right there, I think is what has made the Detroit Lions so fascinating now for 2 seasons. And it's really something they're starting to perfect. There was a lot of problems with the Lions here, and we're going to get into them later on the show. But I also feel like a lot of those problems are also week one jitters, and also you have to give credit to the fact that you're playing the Los Angeles Rams, who, in my mind, out of the gate are a playoff bound team. It we have to go there, Jeremy. Like they are a very good team. Like and when you're playing a very good team, it does amplify when you have some mistakes you're making and some weaknesses you're having, because on the other side of that field is Sean McVay, the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, I mean, let's start there with the Rams offense, and what they were able to do against the Lions defense. And listen, I think we all came into week one thinking like, okay, what's this defense actually going to look like? We know they've put a lot of resources into the defensive front. We know they've put even more into the secondary. What's it actually going to look like? And I'm not sure we necessarily got a ton of answers in week one because it was so weird. The Rams, obviously, as you mentioned, they're dealing with offensive tackle 4 and offensive tackle 5 being out there for the team. You lose, you're starting left guard, so you eventually move Jonah Jackson back to guard, which means you're bringing in a rookie center. It was a mess, and you're right. I do think there needs to be a lot of credit given to Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford for adjusting on the fly, and Dan Campbell even said it himself, like, we actually threw some things that they weren't expecting at the beginning of the game, which kind of caused them into that short passing game, which is something that the Rams just kind of held on to the rest of the game. And I've heard a lot of criticism, and maybe some of it is warranted, of Aaron Glenn. Like, okay, they keep throwing it short. Why aren't we doing anything differently? First of all, I don't think that's a great characterization of what they did. I think they did try a bunch of things, but I also think they were kind of happy with that. I think they were happy giving up little by little by little by little because, in general, they're a really good tackling team. They'll get some tackles for loss in there, which they did. And they trust that at some point the Rams are going to shoot themselves in the foot. Most quarterbacks under that amount of duress that quickly, most offenses that have to go 12, 13 plays down the field to drive are at some point going to slip up. A holding penalty, a false start, a tackle for loss, a sack, a tipped pass that gets picked off. Like, one of those things tends to happen with most teams that are forced to go little by little by little. And it didn't happen enough in this game. And part of that is on the Lions for not getting their hands on enough balls. Part of that is just Matthew Stafford being a freaking wizard with pressure in his face. And part of it is the Rams are just a good football team. And they came up with ways to get their receivers open, ways to beat the Lions' coverages, ways to read what the Lions are doing based on some pre-snap motion. And listen, at the end of it, the Lions held them to 20 points. Like, let's not act like that is a poor performance. You hold someone to 20 points, that's a good performance. We're wringing our hands over the Lions' offensive performance, which only had 17 points until the end of regulation. The offense wasn't good enough. I will agree with that because they had 20 points in regulation. The Rams only got to 20 points. So I don't think we answered necessarily a ton of questions about the defense. I will say I was very happy with the edge play. I thought Davenport was fantastic. Obviously, Aiden was fantastic. So that was a plus. I think the secondary, we kind of have to wait and see until we see a team that's a little bit more willing and able to go downfield, because the Rams were just not going to do it in this game.
Yeah, to talk about the defense, I think the point of frustration really set in, right? I mean, the first half, you couldn't be any more happy with it. They held them to 3 points. Lions, even though their offense was sputtering, it felt like the Lions were still very much in control of the football game. When the Lions go up 17-3, just after the start of the half, you feel pretty good. Like, you feel pretty confident. And then it's long, sustained drives where I understand the premise. I understand the idea of, well, you know what? You want to try to go death by 1,000 cuts. You guys will make a mistake. Like you said, you'll false start. there'll be a sack, there'll be a tackle for loss or something that'll put you behind the sticks, but it just didn't happen. It was 11 play drive, 70 yards, touchdown, 7 plays, 76 yards, field goal, 10 plays, 80 yards, touchdown. And in the midst of all that, it's Lions 3-and-out,
Yeah.
Lions interception across the middle when Jared Goff, that felt like a pass that he was trying to force something that wasn't necessarily there. And then after that touchdown to put the Rams up 2017, it's a 3-and-out. So like football, I don't know, we're looking at the entire picture. Some of the defense and offense stuff bleeds into one another, right?
Yeah,
And
it's
I think
complementary football, right?
for sure. And I think the point of frustration last night with the defense ultimately rested on the context, right? And I think Chris, you want to talk about this in a second, but you think back to week 2 last year against the Seahawks and the Seahawks depth at offensive line, and a lot of fans wondering, well, where's the pressure coming from? How are the Lions able to generate pressure? I think one, there's a lot to talk about that. Two, I totally get the point of frustration. I was frustrated last night with it just because I thought, man, like there was a point earlier in the game where, it seemed like Aaron Glenn was blitzing a little bit more and getting some more pressure on Matthew Stafford. And that was the half where the Rams scored 3 points. And then the Lions are very content rushing 4, which I felt like was the right move, right? I mean, they're on OT4, they're on OT5. Like you said, Jeremy, Marcus Davenport's getting a lot of push. Ali McNeil's talking about how just playing next to the guy, you can hear him because he's so violently smashing into somebody. And that's incredible in and of itself because it's defense, right? How can you hear anything that's going on in that stadium while the defense is out in the field? And Aiden Hutchinson had a premier game. You could think that 4 guys would get home. I think our quote unquote in week 1, our worst fears were being confirmed about a secondary that hadn't been tested yet. And you talked about that nervousness or maybe some anxiety about week 1, Jeremy. The secondary hasn't played in a game together. There have been no, live bullets. There has been no, real action for the secondary. And that's where those 3 straight drives happen, right? It's the secondary. It's Matthew Stafford making the right read. They're man beaters, and I think I understand the frustration coming from fans' perspective. And go ahead, Chris.
No. I wanted you to finish before I
Yeah,
jumped in.
no, I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay, no, I was just going to say I feel a lot of that frustration. I do think, like, to your saying fans getting frustrated, it is, I think you kind of touched on it. This is going to take some time with the secondary because ultimately these guys, I mean, you're relying on rookies, you're relying on second years, you're relying on guys who are new to the system. Oh, by the way, they're also playing Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nacua as their trial by fire too. Like, I agree with Jeremy in that I feel like there was kind of a catch-22 where it's like we got to either, like, Cooper Kupp's going to eat this ball. There's no you have to deal with that reality. Like I saw some Lions fans and I felt like, I'm sorry, you're not just going to keep pushing the Rams back and back. That's not a team you can do it to. That's not a team anyone can do. There's not a team in the NFL that can do that to the Rams, I believe. I still think this is a team that's not only going to go to the playoffs and win, but they're going to win the NFC West. Ultimately, you had to choose between are going to risk letting Puka Nacua or later Cooper Kupp take your top off, or are you going to let them dink and dunk? And unfortunately, I think to your point, Ryan, like, unfortunately, letting them dink and dunk does result in almost 35 minutes of time of possession by the LA Rams in this game. And that's where your defense does get worn down a little bit. And when you're dealing with rookies, yeah, that's kind of where and I want to save the turf for later. I'm not sure what's going on, whether it was a turf or cleats thing or if this is just some weird form thing. Definitely felt like there was a lot of moments where it's like he could have had that. He could have had that, both on offense and defense, where it's like Jahmyr Gibbs slips up. Carlton Davis, I believe, slips up. It looks like
times.
What he could have had multiple times, including on what looked like a surefire interception and knocks the wind out of himself in there.
Yeah. The go ahead.
It was a weird.
The go ahead touchdown by the Rams. Carlton Davis is on his butt when that snap is made because he's going in motion trying to follow Cooper Kupp, and then when Cooper Kupp changes directions, he falls on his butt and can't. And that's why he's so wide open for that route, is because Carlton Davis fell.
Yeah, it was frustrating, and I think I understand the frustrations. One thing we haven't touched on is the fact that the Lions, and I feel like part of this was the Rams realizing they had to go to the air, but the Lions only allowed 50 yards of rushing from Kyron Williams in this game as well. The Rams had the option to run the ball, and they just did not. They just didn't.
They
I
couldn't.
think ultimate, yeah, they couldn't. Like I know they tried Kyron Williams early, and it's like, all right, well, we're going to need to have Stafford beat them. And yeah, sometimes they would beat them. Other times Kirby Joseph is picking you off in the end zone because does he see Kirby Joseph? Does he not? Is he camouflaged according to aggregators? I don't know, but he got picked off, and I think this game is frustrating, but it's frustrations from a combination of you're playing like a team in week one where none of your starters played in the preseason, and you are playing a team that you just saw in the playoffs who wants to come out there and get their grudge match in, and also you're playing a really good team in week one as well.
Yeah, and to stick with the defense here, and maybe we'll just stick with the defense in the first segment. We'll talk more offense in the second segment. Like, there are a couple stats that really stand out to me that are extremely promising. The first one being 12 quarterback hits. Like, that's obviously what you want and what you need when a team is so hurt on the offensive line. But I also think it's maybe a sign that some of the pass rush stuff that we're optimistic about is real. I mean, how about Levi Onwuzurike going out there and immediately getting a sack in his first game where he's extremely healthy? Maybe I should double check. It might be his first career start. That can't be true. But either way, like, really good to see him do that. Like I said, I was very impressed with the edges. Maybe you want a little bit more out of someone like Aleem McNeil or the other defensive tackles. But, like, remember, this team is adding a DJ Reader next week, and that's going to make a difference. And then 5 pass breakups. It's not a ton when you consider that Matthew Stafford threw it 50 times, but it's not nothing. And when 3 of them come from Brian Branch, you're like, okay, that's a good start to your safety career. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other things that happened with Brian Branch in this game. The missed tackles. Maybe some of that is adjusting to the angles of being so far away from the line of scrimmage when you're at your best, but arguably toward the line of scrimmage. But at the same time, Brian Branch is one of the safest tacklers on the team. I'm willing to believe that this game was a little bit of an aberration. And that's the other thing that we need to come down to a little bit is, like, we need to be open to the idea that things that happened in this game are not necessarily fundamental mistakes, fundamental flaws of this team. It's a one-off. And I'm not going to sit here.
It's week one.
I'm not going to sit here and be like, nothing. There's nothing that concerns me because everything that happened in this game they're going to fix. Like that. That's unrealistic too. It's not a perfect team. There are going to be some mistakes that we saw in week 1, continue in week 2, continue in week 3. But as I wrote in Pride of Detroit Direct this week, like, also, don't you have enough faith in this coaching staff by now, based on how they play in December and January every single year they've been here, including in year 1 when they went 3-3 in December after going 10-1 outside of December? Don't you have enough faith that eventually they're going to figure some of these things out? Eventually they're going to figure out where to put their players in their best position to succeed. So if there's bumps in the road early in the season and they still win the football game, like, it's almost the best of the both worlds. And, like, this is the Lions playing their worst football that they will all season, and they won. And they beat an NFC contender. Now they have that tiebreaker. Now they have an NFC win, which is also another tiebreaker for the other teams. Now you're already a game ahead of the Packers. Like, win-win to me, even if it wasn't pretty.
Yeah. I mean, there's the old adage of you can never really complain about a win at the end of the day, right? Like, the Lions
Just win,
got it
baby.
done. The Lions got it done. I will say that I was a little curious and going back and actually looking at the play-by-play, the Rams had 9 carries for 51 yards in the first half. They were averaging over 6 yards a carry. But it didn't feel like the Rams were really able to run the football.
Not
right?
between
So
the tackles, right?
Right. So, like, looking back at that play-by-play, it's, left end around to Puka Nacua for
Right.
7 yards. End around to, Cooper Kupp for 9 yards. It's like, okay, now I'm seeing how this 51 yards happened.
Yep.
Because all of the Kyron Williams play-by-plays are Kyron Williams 4 yards, Kyron Williams 2 yards, Kyron Williams. So that was a bit of an aberration. And that was something, like, in real time, I'm wondering why don't the Rams just try to do more gadgety stuff? But, I mean, do you want to do that, or do you want just Matthew Stafford throwing the ball and making the right read?
Right.
That's why Stafford threw the ball 49 times. Um, and Jeremy, you brought it up, and I think maybe not to we can look forward. I think maybe either later this segment or maybe just in segment two overall. But I, DJ Reader is going to be such a massive just piece, right? And I think when you look at the defensive line performance, you're encouraged by it. Even though there's the context of the OT4, OT5, Jonah Jackson playing center and then not playing center, you think about what DJ Reader adds to the mix there, and that's another sign to be encouraged by. I think Cooper Kupp's comments post game, right, to Terrion Arnold to be like, yeah, like you're one of those guys that like you have it, right? Like you can stick around in the league and you can go toe to toe for a guy who was, I mean, we're 3 years removed from him being offensive player of the year. We're 3 years removed from him being the Super Bowl MVP.
Right.
I you know, I think there were a lot of question marks about him coming into this game. Cooper Kupp specifically because he's on the wrong side of 30. He's dealt with injuries that are nagging and this, that, and so forth. I wonder how much different this game looks with Puka Nacua in the lineup. I think it's fair to say, and I'm not saying that like, oh man, the Lions only got off, they only got a win because Puka Nacua got hurt. I'm just wondering how much of that dynamic, because like there's three layers to the secret sauce, I think, right? There's Matthew Stafford who's doing everything for them. It's the dynamic pass game, and then it's Kyron Williams. Like, just when you think you can just count on the passing game and Matthew Stafford, then it's Kyron Williams
Right.
as like, he can break off these 7 yard, 8 yard, 12, 14, something like that. And I think you remove one of those pieces, and arguably maybe Puka's the most dynamic in the sense of like a big play threat, because the Cooper Kupp stuff is like mostly like it's route running. It's near the line of scrimmage. And that's something where looking at the Lions defense and looking at their back end and looking at their secondary, you wonder about the communication stuff. You wonder a lot about, I think something that maybe we can talk about is seeing the defensive backs travel a lot and being in so much man and not passing those guys off. And there are
They
a
were
lot of
playing off a
plays.
lot too,
Yeah,
I believe.
there are a lot of plays where the defensive backs were getting caught in the muck. You know what I mean? Where it's a rub route or it's something, and Stafford can hit that first read, and it effectively is a 4, 5, 6 yard run, and then that's how you get yourself all the way down the field. So I think there. I mean, if the Lions could have had a game like this, you love that it's week one, you love that it's against a formidable opponent, and I think you get all this stuff on film, like and I think you get a chance to look at this stuff with your younger players, with your secondary that's kind of molding and gelling, and you, because I'm telling you guys, like, yeah, I understand also the Lions aren't going to play Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay and Cooper Kupp every week. Fair, but I think Baker Mayfield might have something going in Tampa Bay. Like, you have
Yeah.
another formidable opponent coming up.
100%.
And another playoff grudge match coming right down the pike as well too. Like
Yeah.
you got to be right up and going right again. To your point, I respect everything you said there, Ryan. I just believe that I wonder about this a little bit because I felt like Stafford got better after Nakua left the game. And I don't want to say Stafford gets better when he's like got the guy to zero in on and force the ball to, but it did feel like I feel like if I had to guess what the defense plan was, it was we don't want the Rams to take the top off. We don't want the Rams to take the top off us. No matter what. That's why we're going to playing off. That's why we're playing man. That's why we're going to sit out here and just don't like we don't want the mid-range stuff to happen, but we really have no choice. We really have no choice because like if one of these guys gets behind us, it's going to just go very poorly. I think there's downsides to that absolutely, but it does feel like I don't know. I do feel like Stafford kind of locked in and figured out where to go on the defense when it was just Cooper Kupp. Maybe it was the assignments on him. Maybe it was the fact that Terry and Arnold is still kind of like getting up to the speed of this league because he played like a rookie out there. There's no other way around it. I know there's a lot of hype on Terry and Arnold. I think he'll be able to catch up to speed, but there was definitely several plays where you could tell like, yeah, he's gotta catch up on how fast NFL speed goes.
Yeah. Well, real quick to that point, and then Jeremy jump in here. But I think you look at even the game, the play log for last night, and Rams outside of their 3 and out to start the game, 13 plays, 67 yards, field goal. 12 plays, they don't convert on that fourth down. The following drive for them is the interception in the end zone. So I think the Rams were still moving the ball. The Lions were able to make it. We also can't, Jeremy, we also can't take away the fact that the Lions defense made plays when they had to. They
Yeah.
got off the field on the
Yep.
forcing them on out on downs. And then dude, I love the idea of the all blue jerseys and Kirby Joseph camouflaged in the end zone. Is there something to it? Like you have the padding on the back wall that's all blue. The paint in the end
Oh,
zone's all blue.
tinfoil hat time. Here we
Put on
go.
the tinfoil
So-
hat. I
if he
love
was
the home
laying
field
down on the
advantage.
field, if he was laying down, was that a high school play?
Oh,
or was that
yeah,
a
do
college
that
play
for
that was laying
kickoffs.
down in the end zone?
Just lay Khalif Raymond down in the end zone. That dude is so small they won't see him.
Oh,
No,
boy.
I don't know. I'm just saying. But Jeremy, like I said, you want to be critical of the defense, but you also have to give them the props when they made plays when they
Yeah.
needed to.
Well, and let me throw this at you because I just pulled up Matthew Stafford's passing chart and it looks exactly like you think it would. But let me pull out a stat from it. Matthew Stafford was 3 for 10 on passes beyond 10 yards. They took away the deep shot. Like the only completion that I remember of them making deep was the corner route that why do I keep calling him Puka? The other one,
Cooper Kupp.
Cooper
The
Kupp.
Cooper Kupp, like
And
they
to
had that
be fair,
awesome overhead shot where he's like dragging his feet. It was ridiculous throw. It was an even more ridiculous catch. Otherwise, the line shut him down. And I should add that 3 of 10 with an interception, right? That Kirby.
Yeah, and
Joseph's
Cooper Kupp was
interception.
getting plenty of yak on these too.
Right,
Like,
and
he was making a couple guys miss.
That is the one thing that I think is going to be that I'm confident was an aberration. Like this is a good tackling secondary. It's one of the things that they love about getting guys like they have is that they're good tackling defenders. And so, I mean, the 60-yard play was absolutely ridiculous. I don't think that's something that's going to happen again. In general, I don't think they were at their best in that facet of the game, but that to me is what the difference between last year's secondary was and what this year's was. And granted, 10 shots beyond 10 yards, it's not a lot when you throw it 50 times, but last year the Lions were giving up explosive plays downfield through the air. They didn't do that in this game, and it slowed down the Rams offense all freaking night. And so I think that's if you're worried about the secondary, if you're worried about the pass defense, I think that's one positive you can take from it because I think that was the game plan. I think the Lions executed it like they mostly wanted to. It's just they gave up a little bit too much, when it probably should have been 3-4 yard gains. It ended up being 6-7 yard gains. And then you give up 1 or 2 explosive plays with a missed tackle here, missed tackle there. But you slowed them down. And like Ryan was saying earlier, and we'll get into in the next segment here, you were not playing good complementary football on offense. You were not giving the defense the breaks that they needed after these 9, 10, 11 play drives. And that's when it started to snowball a little bit in the second half. But they pulled out of it. Yeah. They got the stops that they needed to. I mean, and that's the thing that Dan Campbell kept pointing to both last night and this morning is the complementary football snapped right back into place at the last possible moment. And he said, it starts with the Jack Fox punt. I didn't love that they punted, but I understand why they did. But they pinned the Rams down at the 11. The defense gives up 1 first down, but they don't give up a next. The offense goes and drives and nearly scores a touchdown, but kicks the field goal that they need, and then overtime is what it was. So like, that's the flash that we're like, okay, that's the team that we want. That's the team that we think we have this year. It just needs to be for a full. I mean, it was there in the first quarter. It was there towards the end of the fourth quarter and all of overtime. It's just that middle piece that was missing in this game, and it almost cost them.
Lions played a team that felt like they were playing Lions offenses last year, having to wait and get grind out. Anyway, I agree with everything Jeremy had. One quibble, they will be a good tackling team once we figure out what's going on with the turf monsters. And how who are we going to put on that case to figure out the turf monster? Righteous Felon Craft Jerky and Meat Sticks. That's right. You thought it was just beef jerky. They're also a crack turf investigative unit. They'll get to the bottom of this. they'll get to the bottom of this and deliver you great meat snacks to everyone because they bring you the Pride of Detroit POD cast. It fuels the Pride of Detroit POD cast. Righteous Felon craft jerky and meat sticks. 2-ounce bags of jerky with 16 to 20 grams of protein. Meat sticks with 8 grams. Trust me, if it's good enough for us and the Lions, it's going to be good enough for you too. Because Righteous Felon is based in Westchester, Pennsylvania, using locally sourced, all natural black Angus beef, priding themselves on superior quality, revolutionary branding, unique flavors that go beyond the stereotypical jerky offering from their smokehouses to your doorstep, wherever you may be. All the flavors you could want, everything you want. Truffalo Bill, Soul Survivor, Aim to Please. And we're going to help you out here. Why? Because we're running out of time on this, folks. We got plenty of this stuff to give away. They love us. They love us. Like, please, here, more money off, get more people in to try the jerky, and it's some of the best damn jerky we've had out there. Full stop.
Bar none.
Burn. POD20 at checkout at righteousfelon.com. That promo code is only good through next week, guys. Oh my God, look at that. Jeremy's camera is so much better than mine. You can see the pieces of gochujang and sesame seeds on that piece of Soul Survivor Korean barbecue flavored beef jerky. POD, if you want that, POD20 at checkout, righteousfelon.com. That's active for another week here. After that, we'll have our usual POD15 code for 15% off, but you want that extra 5%, you got a week to go. POD20 at checkout at righteousfelon.com. When we come back on the Pride of Detroit POD cast, yes, we will talk about the problems on offense. We will start looking ahead to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because the Lions are facing the fire right out of the gate. The good news is they've got Ford Field on their side, except for maybe the surface. And we'll discuss all of that next on the Pride of Detroit POD cast. All right, guys. We are keeping this short. We're not going to have a long break because Jeremy's tired. I have like a hard out around 8:30. I know a lot of you want to watch Monday Night Football, and the lights just went off in here. There we go. They're timed. Yeah.
Also,
Chris might appreciate that Antonio Pierce made a really dumb decision punting in the fourth quarter. Not good. Yeah, we can't call him the new Dan Campbell. Like,
yeah.
Lame. Weak.
No, audio shouldn't be gone now. I don't think so.
I can't put a mask on, guys. I'm at work.
I changed scenes really quick because the alerts were going. You guys saw it. The alerts were going off in my box, and I was trying to figure out why the hell that
what was happening there.
So the long story short of it is that Zoom is pulling from a specific scene in our software or streaming software.
OBS, yeah.
Yes. That's it, it's like a virtual camera. They are pulling the virtual camera from that specific scene, and during the Madden sim, it's the full cam scene, which makes sense. It's me in full cam. And during the Madden sim, during the full cam thing, I turned alerts back on, and so in that scene, alerts are on, and so it's only showing up here, as opposed to in the middle of the screen where it normally does. Because in the 3-box scene that we were on, alerts are turned off. So I just went full scene. I turned the alert box off, so next time we're in segment, the alert should not be going off. So apologies to those of you on YouTube, because I know you hate the alerts. But they were relatively quiet. You guys could all hear us. All right. Let me get to some alerts. Then we'll talk about some things. We'll talk about some Malik Willis if you want, Rye.
I noticed we didn't talk about when we were talking about NFC North standings, the Chicago Bears, and what a fugazi fucking win they had. But
yeah, we can get to that too. All right, Papa Bert, thank you for the 29 months. Pulled a couple of these in the chat. The Pintar 15 months says, never lost faith even when we were down. Lines say never die. Courting Aaron 56 months says, we are so back. Also pulled one of those. Go Play 9, 15 months subscribed to the channel. Lefty Detroit has been watching for 3 straight streams. Dan Goriber. I'm sorry. I probably butchered that. 49 months. Subscribe to the channel. Appreciate that. Nick the Greek, 100 bits, says Kelly Stafford's emotionally traumatized children. Another 100 bits says Matthew Stafford's inability to communicate appropriate career-related boundaries. Nick the Greek, another 100 bits, says Matt Patricia's startling and certainly temporary weight loss. Nick the Greek, another 100 bits, says Christopher. No, you know what? I'm drawing the line at personal insults for the people that are in the room.
I don't understand the colonoscopy thing. I really
don't really
I'm sorry, man.
10 gifted subs from our good friend Joshua Mercer. Appreciate that. Nick the Greek, another 100 bits, says Aiden Hutchinson's 9 uncalled penalties. I need to go back because it's not always easy to see from the live view. Are you two in agreement that Hutchinson was getting mauled in this game and probably could have been?
He was getting mauled, but only in the sense that every defensive player these days gets mauled and nothing gets called. Nothing out. I hate to say it, it's nothing out of the ordinary. What's about compared to what's going on with the rest of the league. Like that is unfortunately the state of being a defensive player in the modern NFL right now. You have to like get shot for a penalty to get called on you. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it best put by Max Crosby. I don't know how long ago the clip was from, but he was kind of talking about throwing shade at Joey Bosa a little bit for, remember his like blow up where he slammed his helmet and he got the extra penalty in the game. Yeah. And Max Crosby just being like, dude, like you're going to get held. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's going to happen. Like you just have to play through it, and it's going to be a reality. And I don't think that there's much to it. I'm more interested to see, because it's not how the defensive ends are being officiated; it's how the offensive tackles are being officiated. Right?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
I mean, you think about Thursday, and you think about all the illegal formation penalties against the Ravens, and it's like,
did the Rams get called with the hands to the face? I've never I don't know how hard. Like I usually see face masks called on defensive players, but I'm like, holy, yeah, like that should be called more on offensive guys. Their fingers are right in your eyes.
Graham knows all about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they called holding on Aiden Hutchinson on that 1 yard run.
Yeah.
But it was a face mask, right?
Yeah.
It should have been a face mask.
It should have been, and it would have been more of a penalty.
Right. 5 yards.
Yeah. Holding, right.
I will say in Aiden Hutchinson's this is maybe hopeful for Aiden Hutchinson. I do kind of like what he does when he's getting held and he starts flailing his arms up in the air.
Yeah,
like hoping you can at least get something called.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine they're taught to do that. You don't like it?
No, I mean, if you like that, then you like watching, I don't know, Manu Ginobili. Like,
dude, but it's so stacked against the defense now. I feel like the deck is so stacked.
Like
it
depends. Like the context matters, but like I also see defensive players who like try to sell it too hard, and it's like if you do that, like you're going to earn distrust from the officiating moving forward.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? So there's a fine line between looking like Waluigi out on the field, and
that's who he is, all right?
Yeah. So I don't know. There's something to that.
Yeah.
But
I felt more bad about who was that was going at Stafford and like just put his hands up way too quickly to like thinking he was going to get a pass down, and like Stafford just ducks him, and like just wrap up on Stafford, man.
Yeah.
If the ball goes over your head, it goes over your head. Just come on, man. Hit
there
Stafford.
was at least one person that came from Turf Show Times that went over to Pride Detroit's comment section and was complaining that the lines were being dirty.
Oh, come on.
Because
shocker.
Because Aiden went low on. I mean, listen, it was the right call, right? When Aiden hit Stafford low and got roughing the passer for it, but he also did almost everything he physically could possibly do to like ensure that hit was not hard. And that's like the exact opposite of being dirty. It's like, okay, he knows he messed up. He's gonna get flagged anyway. Let's try to at least not injure the guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, kudos. I mean, Stafford's a damn trooper. I know. Everyone knows what I think about Stafford, but there is part of me, especially now that the Lions actually went out and won the game, that can like look back on that performance and be like, that was kind of cool to see.
We didn't put it in the podcast.
And making throws with hands in his face. It's just like we usually attribute to that level of play to the Mahomes because they're running with their, he's making all of the plays with his arms that guys like Patrick Mahomes makes with his feet, if that makes sense. Like Mahomes gets out of trouble with his feet, finds open space, and then obviously he has a really good arm too, but like Stafford doesn't have that natural athleticism to get out of trouble, so he has to throw through trouble. And that to me is maybe even more impressive because you can't see, your body's being affected when you're throwing. You have to throw quicker. I mean, again, that third down throw that he made in their drive to put the game away was incredible. Absolutely incredible. He's throwing before the route breaks. He's throwing while being knocked backwards, and he's just an absolute laser right where it needs to be. He's an incredible quarterback, and
you could say he's like 2-0 head-to-head versus Jared Goff in terms of like who played better quarterback on the nights that they played one another.
Right,
for
and
sure.
Jared Goff was fantastic in the playoff game. We'll talk about how he was yesterday. I don't think it was terrible, but it wasn't good.
I didn't get this on podcast, but I do wonder though how long. Like this is I clearly believe this is beef now at this point between Stafford and Detroit. I do believe there is bad blood in there for a variety of factors. I'm not blaming anyone. But like this is just kind of humanity at the end of the day. Like you can't deal. No person can deal with that kind of hate raining down on them coming from a place that once supported them dearly. Like and that place in turn can't deal with that kind of shunning at times too. Like I'm not blaming anyone. I'm not saying Detroit's in the right. I'm not saying Stafford's in the wrong. I'm not saying any of that. I do wonder though if this really puts to the test this like feeling that the Lions have tried to do to bring their old players back into the fold, because I don't know when Stafford's going to get that nice homecoming now. And it feels like each time what's that?
When he retires.
But like I feel like but I think each time these two teams meet, it just is going to put that further and further. And I don't know if it's going to be when he retires. The Lions will certainly offer the olive branch, but I don't know if Stafford will take it at that point. How can you? You're getting your ass whooped by this team. You're getting people raining booze down on you. You got your wife going on podcasts, fucking beefing with everyone who can out there. Like this is teetering on toxic right now.
Maybe see you in 18 weeks, dude. I don't know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The one thing I want to say is the Lions tried to extend the olive branch to Calvin Johnson, and then he showed up to Raiders training camp in Raiders gear. Time heals all wounds.
Yep.
Things
are hot right now.
Yeah, and also I wanted to ask you, Jeremy, from your perspective, because on the broadcast, and as a wrestling fan, I understand how you can pipe in whatever kind of sound you want to a broadcast, but Collinsworth made a remark at the beginning when the Rams took the field that like Stafford got a much different reception than obviously he did in the playoff game. Like it sounded like there were like a smattering of cheers. Like there was like I'm telling you, like if you go back and you watch the broadcast, I was like I can kind of hear it, but it's almost like they're like trying to like pick up audio from like certain parts. I'm like, there's no way they're cheering him.
Yeah, I didn't.
Like,
I
that's
did
not happening.
I did not hear any cheering. I would say the booing was probably not as thunderous as it was the first time around, but it was definitely there.
Yeah.
I also wasn't paying attention much to NBC. I did have someone saying it sounded like the energy was down in the stadium, and I'm like, no, I do think they're turning down crowd noise a bit because it's so deafening.
Right. You have to be able to hear
loud.
Collinsworth.
Yeah.
Go,
I wish I didn't have to hear Collinsworth. There was like several times where it's like he's trying to break down the strategy for the Rams. I'm like, to give Stafford, what are you talking about, dude? What are you talking about?
I'm going to be the last man on an island that defends Chris Collinsworth. I like him. I'm sorry.
Well, you might want to go back. You might not want to go back and listen to this one because this was rough.
You didn't know the OT rules? I heard someone say that one of the guys didn't know the OT rules.
Yeah, he was talking about like
playoff overtime.
He was talking about a certain point. Like, are the Lions going to like maybe make a play to get to a certain hash in overtime to kick the field goal? And I'm like,
why?
No, Chris.
Also,
Chris.
Yeah,
and then someone who is a very strong stickler for the rules, that one hurts me good.
Yeah,
that one hurts me good.
I didn't hear all of it, Ryan. I don't know if you heard it. Like, what was he talking about? Like, like you got to think about whether you're going to kick. I think he was arguing that they should kick a field goal on third down to give Stafford more time on an ensuing drive or something.
Oh, hold on. What was that again? Yeah, I vaguely remember this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, last note for me, because I do know we need to get back to this, but
I got some
Lions
words
fans,
for
we understand the 10-second runoff was in your favor, right?
it was. I would say it was
I know.
not necessarily a favor. It was there. I saw some people that were bothered by their clock management there. I thought they were fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was fine.
Like they weren't
Totally fine.
up against it, and they ran it down to 17 seconds, which I think is once it was clear they weren't going to get a touchdown. They weren't playing for a field goal like I think some people were suggesting.
No, I don't
No,
think so
no,
either.
not at all.
Yeah, they had plenty of time. They had plenty of time. And to be honest, like, and I know hindsight is 2020, but you ran down enough time that the Rams couldn't do anything.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
and I think that in
they
that
were
moment
balancing
of the
that
game,
for sure.
which is the hardest line to walk, right?
Yeah.
Like that's so hard. Like, oh, we want to score a touchdown, but we also don't want to leave too much time. And
Yeah.
like, yeah, so that
It's
hard
funny
line to
because
walk.
now I'm remembering the Seahawks game, and there was a little bit of criticism for the same thing. I think it was a little bit more warranted that time. I don't remember the specifics because it was literally 360 days ago or whatever. But it's kind of funny that the parallels that are between those games. Let me get back to the alerts here, and then
I was about to say, can we?
Yeah.
I'm kind of pressed on time. Can we shelve those for after
Sure.
the next segment?
Yep. Let's
Thank
do
you.
that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm just.
you don't need to apologize.
I'm crazy.
We all
I'm
want to watch
crazy, just
Monday Night
neurotic
Football
on
anyways,
time.
or maybe some of us
Yeah.
don't because we know who's going to be featured most of the time.
Some of us are also going on Grand Rapids Radio in about like 40 minutes.
There you go. All right, let's get it.
Welcome back to the Pride of Detroit POD cast. I think we wanted to take this time to kind of turn our attention over to the offense, and then we'll kick on the end a little bit of time to look ahead to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The offensive grade, I think the consensus here is that did not play very well out of the gate. I don't know if a lot of that's just the loss of Josh Reynolds and trying to adjust for it. I do think, again, kind of to my opening rant, I do think you have to give some credit to the fact that, like, I get that Aaron Donald took up a lot of attention in people's minds, but like Kobe Turner, Jared Verse, like that's still a lot of really good pressure up there. And I do think, this is an offensive line that didn't play in the preseason. I'm going to keep coming back to this. Nobody played in the preseason. I'm not saying you need to play in the preseason, but teams will look like this in week 1 if they don't play in the preseason. A lot of other problems with it outside of there too, but let me pass it over to Jeremy because, I think we can abstain Jamison Williams from this. He played phenomenal in this game.
Yeah, we'll
some other questions about other main
I
contributors.
do want to talk about Jamison Williams plenty because listen, we're not just going to sit here and say like, oh, what about this or we're worried about this. Like, let's celebrate some of the good things that happened. And Jamison Williams and David Montgomery are going to get their flowers this segment. But to me, the odd part about this game in its entirety was the run game and how it just disappeared for 3 quarters. Just absolutely disappeared. So first quarter, 39 yards rushing. Pretty good. I'll take that. Second quarter, 14. Third quarter, 14. Fourth quarter, 19. And then overtime, 45. Like, they started really hot. They finished really hot. Everything in between was like, what happened? And it wasn't for lack of trying. They were trying. Obviously, David Montgomery was far more successful than Jahmyr Gibbs was between the tackles in this game, which is typically how it's going to work, but you're hoping to give Jahmyr Gibbs a little bit more opportunities to take a well-blocked run between the tackles and make an explosive play, and it just wasn't there in this game. And I don't know what it was. I do think some credit does, in fact, go to the Rams defensive line, which is a little bit understated, and we're all just a lot of people are just focused on, well, Aaron Donald's gone. They're going to be a lot worse. They got a lot of young guns in there. I think maybe some of it, too, is, listen, there's 2 guys playing new positions, or at least, new to the team. You got Kevin Zeitler for the first time out there with the Lions. Remember, this offensive line, like you said, absolutely 0 snaps in the preseason. I'm with you. Let's not overhype the value of 20 snaps in the preseason and suddenly they're going to look great. It's just a matter of, hey, Kevin Zeitler's playing with new guys around him. It's going to take a little bit of time with chemistry there. And Graham, right? Graham is going from right side to left. It's not easy. It's, as every offensive lineman will tell you, it's like starting to wipe with the other hand. I know it's gross, but think about it. It feels weird. So the offensive line, I don't think, was at its best. But when they were clicking, they were at their best. And we certainly saw it in overtime. We saw it early in the game. So not a long-term concern there, but it was frustrating to see in the moment.
Yeah, all underscored by, you talk about that lull in production from the offense, and was that to do with getting away from the run game? I think, yeah, like after the first drive that they had of the second half, they had the touchdown, but that was the Waymo touchdown,
Sure.
right? And, they start that drive with a 5-yard David Montgomery run. Oh, it's almost like that opened up the opportunity for you to take a shot
Yep.
on 3rd and 3, right? But the next 2 3 and outs, both those series start with passes. And you get the sense that like maybe teams do see it coming to an extent with the Lions wanting to run the ball on first and probably even second down to a certain extent, and you want to keep it varied a little bit. But I think at that point of the game, you start to feel some frustration with the Rams are having these long drives, and we talked about it in the first segment. The Rams are having these long drives on your defense. Your offense is going out there and going 3 and out and putting your defense right back out on the field after they're out there for, I mean, that touchdown when the Rams pulled it to within a score, 11 plays, 70 yards, 7 minutes. And then it's a 3 and out, right? And then it's it's another Rams long drive, 10 plays, 80 yards, almost 5 minutes, and then a 3 and out, right? So I think that's where the frustration is. And I think to your point, Jeremy, is an overall like, hey, the preseason doesn't matter, X, Y, and Z in terms of getting your guys ready. Will 20 snaps all of a sudden turn them into a more consistent unit? And that's what the Lions just were not. They bookended, like you said, they bookended their performance. The first quarter, we loved. Overtime, the end of the fourth quarter, overtime, we loved. There was an inextricable link. There's something that tied those things together, and it was the running game, and it was David Montgomery.
Yeah.
David Montgomery is so essential to this offense, and I wrote about it in the offseason. His physicality changes things. When you can literally, I mean, Jason Kelsey's tweeting about it, right? Where he's like, I am like through the wall. Like my adrenaline is pumping because I just watched Dan Campbell and the Lions say, no, we're stronger than you. And we have we have more grit, and we're running this ball until you stop us. And
he's got the force of someone like Montgomery runs like he's got an extra person blocking for him, like right in front of him. That's how hard he runs.
It doesn't look fun to tackle him at all. Like it doesn't look like any tackler on David Montgomery is having a good time. There are leaner backs in the NFL. You can even look to Jahmyr Gibbs, and I'm not saying that he's an easy guy to tackle, but like every David Montgomery tackle is like, dude, you're like getting up out of your chair to like get yourself ready to work. It's like, dude, come on. Like they can't keep doing this, right? And they went away from that, Jeremy. And I think that's a double-edged sword there a little bit.
Right. Because it's double-edged because, one, you want to give Jahmyr Gibbs the reps that you want, but it's also double-edged because if you're running David Montgomery for 3 quarters straight, you're not going to have the David Montgomery you want at the end of the game.
Yeah, he's
for overtime, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And so this is why the Lions do what they do, and this is why having someone like Jahmyr Gibbs is so important, even if he's not getting the yardage that you want, is that he's giving David Montgomery a break, and you shouldn't be losing too much of a step, even though they're very different runners, because Jahmyr Gibbs presents a whole new threat of his own, and so having David, I mean, that's when you're going to see David Montgomery, right? In general, you're going to see him more in the first quarter to kind of establish that physical presence, beat down them a little bit, and try to wear them down early. And you're going to see him in the fourth quarter because typically this team is going to have a lead in the fourth quarter. And what do you want to do? You want to do exactly what you did in overtime, and you want to just dominate, bleed the clock. You know, how many times this year are we going to see them with the ball with maybe a 1 or 2 score lead with 5 minutes left, and they're just going to feed David Montgomery the rest of the game and not give the ball back? Like, that is going to happen at least 2, 3, 4 times. They're going to try to probably do it every single week, but it's going to happen a lot. And it happened in this game just in, like, it caused, like, they had to lose
very
the lead
stakes
first for some reason. Yeah, and the stakes were very much higher. But, like,
yeah,
this, and some, you know, I think most of it is coming from a fantasy standpoint, and I understand that's important to some people, whatever. But this is why Jahmyr Gibbs is important, even if he's not getting those yards. And it's because he's providing a separate threat. He's giving David Montgomery some time. And sometimes they're going to mix him in, and they're both going to be in there in the same drive. And maybe, hopefully, one day when the clouds finally align, the planets align. Maybe at some point we're actually going to get them both out there in the field at the same time, more than like once
Maybe
or
get
twice a
some
game.
Sione Vaki involved too.
Sure, he was out there for 2 snaps.
Yeah.
Also, I couldn't tell if the Lions had 2 tight ends or not. I didn't know if it was 22 personnel or if it was 21 personnel, but I was like, Sione Vaki and Jahmyr Gibbs, this is fun
Right?
and exciting. Yeah.
Splitting backs, splitting halfbacks. What is this? What year is this? I really do feel like I did see like the league had the least net average passing yards since like at least 2000. So we really are entering an age of Neanderthal, and the Lions are certainly leading the way with these 3 tight. Was that a 3 tight end set I saw out there?
I'm sure. I mean, they're no stranger to that.
There was a lot of Parker Hesse.
Yeah,
there was.
It's your fullback, baby.
Yeah.
Can we turn and talk a little bit? Let's turn our attention away from offensive line, ground game, ground and pound. We know they can do that. I think the questions do start to come up on what you saw to the passing offense out there, and I think it's twofold that we talk about Jared Goff's performance, and then I'm not sure what to make of the mixed bag of wide receivers. I really do feel like the Rams' plan in this was hone in on Amon-Ra St. Brown. Don't take away Jared Goff's most comfortable, most reliable weapon. Put him in a box and make him suffer. And the Lions had to go elsewhere. And like, look, I really can't ignore the amount of pressure they brought on Jared Goff up front with Jared Verse and a lot of the other pressure up the middle, which is also where the Lions are figuring things out. Like they planned it very well, but also too, it's like that's something the Lions really have to work on, really stabilize, because as always, you need Jared Goff upright.
I mean, I just want to say Amon-Ra St. Brown's best play last night was a pass deflection that prevented a near interception. I mean, how often have we ever said that, like, a guy who caught 100 and, whatever balls last year, 1,500 yards, like, come on.
He's not an unknown factor anymore. He's going to get game planned for.
Yeah, for sure. But, Jeremy, you love the fact that if you're going to say, hey, Amon-Ra St. Brown, you are not going to beat us, how else are you going to beat us? And J-Mo says, I'll have a breakout performance.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean,
I loved nothing more than last night of watching J-Mo watching the replay of his touchdown.
Such a smart social media ad, by the way. I don't know if they started doing it last year or the year before, but yeah, J-Mo, I mean, it's that childlike wonder that he has, where he's just like, he's always got that smile on his face. Every single positive thing that happens just has him jumping off the walls. It's fun to see. And listen, I can probably label myself as a J-Mo skeptic for the early part of his career, and even going into this year, I'm like, he looks a lot better in training camp. He looks a lot better. He looked a lot better towards the end of last season, but go out and do it. Go out and be consistent and do it. I need to see that before I'm like fully in J-Mo 1,000-yard season. Like, but man, he went out there and he did just about everything you could possibly want him to do in his year 3 debut. And now I'm starting to feel that excitement a little bit. Now I'm starting to feel like, yeah, you want to take the middle of the field away. I mean, it wasn't just taking away Amon-Ra. Like, Laporta was not an important guy in this game pretty much at all until that last drive, in which he gets a 15-yard or 17-yard catch and an extra 15 with the headshot that he took. So yeah, they needed someone else to step up, and they're going to need more than just J-Mo, right? Like, hopefully whoever the wide receiver X comes out and wins, because I mean, you look at Khalif Raymond, Tom Kennedy didn't even get a target they're thrown their way. So whether it's Tim Patrick, Allen Robinson, maybe Donovan Peoples-Jones has a resurgence, like, they're going to need that extra guy. I'm not saying all the offensive issues were not having that guy, but they need more people to step up if teams are going to do everything they can to take away the middle of the field. And we know teams have been trying to do this before, and they haven't been able to do it. So do I think they're going to be able to keep Amon-Ra St. Brown down to 13 yards every week? No, absolutely not. Ben Johnson is going to find ways to get open. Amon-Ra is going to find ways to get open, and Goff is going to find him. So I'm not concerned about that, but it's good to know, like, this is, again, like, take the positive out of the negative. It's good to know that if Amon-Ra gets shut down for an entire game, you have J-Mo as an option.
And you have Sam Laporta as an option, 4 for 5, 45 yards on the day too. Like he was absolutely involved.
I I'm just saying that like Khalif Raymond, you wouldn't have known he was on the field if you were watching NBC because you missed his one play that he got.
I heard about
Jeremy,
that.
yeah, the overtime, like they come back from break and like the Lions are near the 40-yard line. I'm like, what did I miss? What happened? Like I'm busy getting help from Hank, but the only help from Hank I need is for you to put my football back on my TV, buddy. Um, I I don't know who the wide receiver X is going to be. I don't know how often they're going to be called upon. Chris, I know one of the other games I watched yesterday. I was super intrigued by Seattle and Denver, and Bo Nix really liked him some Josh Reynolds. Like it was kind of bittersweet to watch him because he made a couple of plays that were like, oh man, I thought that that was maybe just like something that like you and Jared Goff had together. I didn't know you were going to be this way with Bo Nix. It's almost
Yeah.
kind of like the
I thought we had something special.
yeah, when Jeremy goes off and records podcasts with other people, that's how I feel, you know.
Oh
So
man.
so I wonder who that guy's going to be, but even though I wonder who that guy's going to be, guys, how great do we just feel about Jamison Williams? Like I don't think
It's
I don't know.
fantastic.
We're not putting the exclamation point on it. If this guy has games like this when the Lions called upon him, he's doing the exact thing that we need him to do. 24 yards a catch, 5 catches, over 120 yards. The big explosive play. There's another play of him on a David Montgomery run where he is absolutely just abusing a defensive back. No block, no rock. Like the guy is all the way here. Last night was the coming out party. Whenever they want to break case or break glass in case of emergency, out comes Jamison Williams ready to
Yeah,
be incredible.
I was partially skeptical about all of Ben Johnson talking about how much JMO is going to be used, but like if he wanted to prove me wrong, he absolutely did it last night on how JMO was used, right? You've got end arounds, you've got all this stuff with Williams in every phase of the passing game, including yes, a play where he had to slow down a bit because I don't think that's Jared Goff underthrowing him or whatever. I think that's more Jamison Williams is just really, really, really damn fast.
Plus, if
And
you're a
yeah,
quarterback,
like
you don't want to overthrow Jameson Williams. It's very hard to overthrow Jameson Williams, but in general, like your deep shots, you rather them go short than far because
I think JMO was like going fast to get separation from the CB, and then just like you saw it, he made him fall down, pop around, grab it,
yeah,
run,
right.
like
Well,
very, very quick. But again, it's everything else too. It's everything else. It's not this is the go route guy. This is you are a full complementary weapon in a multifaceted, multidimensional, like just war machine.
Tre'Davious White tried to tackle Jamison Williams on that play. Like
Tried the operative word.
he legitimately was like, "Oh, he's got me," right? And like
Yeah.
sold out and the flag and everything, but like even the way JMO reacted to the touchdown, it's like that flag is not bringing this back. Like that is a 100% a touchdown.
At some point, he's going to get a flag for like celebrating or taunting or whatever. And the day that comes,
celebrations.
I am going to scream 15 yards well.
No
with it.
fun league. No fun league.
So let me move from the receivers a little bit to Jared Goff. Are you fine with the performance? Does that feel like just week one to you, Jeremy, or is that like I the interception was kind of whatever for me. The sack felt bad at the start, but I mean, what could you do? That pocket collapsed so quickly.
Yeah, honestly, I think his worst play of the day was when he nearly threw an interception on 3rd and 10 of their drive, which punted and eventually led to them getting the ball back and scoring and tying the game. It was just an ill-advised throw. It wasn't an accurate throw. It would have lost the Lions the football game almost certainly. So, I mean, but overall, I think it was just kind of an average Jared Goff performance. I don't think there was anything egregiously bad except for maybe that. I don't think there was anything particularly amazing about his performance either. I do really want to watch the All-22 because it felt like he was holding onto the ball a lot sometimes and not finding anyone open, and I don't know if that was on him and reading things wrong or the receiver's not getting open, or his first and second looks getting taken away because he relies so heavily on Amon-Ra. And that's the thing. Like, I don't think the Lions did not try to get the ball to Amon-Ra. They absolutely did, and I think the Rams took him away. And so that took a little bit of an adjustment from Jared Goff. He's had that security blanket for 2.5 years now. So maybe just like getting a bit of a different look that he didn't expect took some adjustments, and now like people are going to use that as a blueprint, right? People are going to use the Rams as like, okay, this is maybe how we take Amon-Ra out of the game. But the Lions are also going to use that as a blueprint to be like, okay, this is what's going to come at us. How can we attack that?
Sure, and
they're also going to use Jared Goff to run.
No, they are not. No, they are not.
Come on,
nobody wants to see that. Why can't?
Apparently, Hendon Hooker calling him White Vic. Vanilla Vic.
Somebody needs to have a conversation with Hendon Hooker about that, because that's not fair. To your point though, Jeremy, two things. One, the Amon-Ra stuff. You're spot on in the sense that the Lions weren't, looking elsewhere instead. I think they still very much wanted Amon-Ra St. Brown to be a part of the game plan, and when you take that away from Jared Goff, you do see him holding on to the ball a little bit longer, because I gotta imagine that Amon-Ra is one of those first or second reads for him. And I mean, we want to talk about Jared Goff's performance. You say, well, the couple of times he tried to force the ball to Amon-Ra St. Brown, it was the pass deflection that he saved the interception, and it was the interception that he threw when he tried to thread the needle to Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I'm hoping that the game that he had with JMO though helps build the confidence of, you know what? Like, if it's not there early with Amon-Ra, JMO might be open. Like the old Matthew Stafford, like Calvin's down there somewhere.
Right.
Like, why not, take a shot? And the ill-advised throw, the interception that would have been that didn't end up happening, swung the game massively. Like that interception happens, and it's a very different looking drive, right? Even if the Rams get 3 on that drive, Lions have to score a touchdown in that spot. So I don't know. It was just like the most like C game from Jared Goff. Like, it was the definition of, now it wasn't Caleb Williams putting his name on the group project kind of performance, but
I don't know. I mean, I know how the Bears won that game. It's that the Titans are terrible. Like, Will Levis is even worse. Like, holy God.
Their defense is probably pretty good too, to be clear.
I mean, I don't know. I watched a whole half of Tony Pollard just destroying that defense.
Well, okay, so that was the other thing I wanted to say real quick too, Jeremy, is that I really thought after the Bears game in Chicago last year that, like, oh, the blueprint's out on Jared Goff. You stuff the middle of the field. If you can get pressure with 4 guys and you can stuff the middle of the field, the Lions are going to be in trouble, because Jared Goff, outside of the hash marks, isn't the most prolific passer in the NFL. After that game, what did the Lions proceed to do? Like, they figured it out, right?
Yeah.
So like that's the hope, that's the optimism that, like, the Rams, to Chris's point, they can generate pressure with the 4 guys that they have up front. They don't need to blitz a ton. It's also shocking. You look at Jared Goff's numbers from last night. Like, he was actually better when he was under pressure and being blitzed than he was when he was kept clean.
That is interesting.
Which is something that is total opposite of Jared Goff and his typical performances.
2 quick things. Another stat that shocked me is that he had more yards per attempt than Stafford did on the day, 7.8 versus 6.5. And then the other thing I wanted to say is it's interesting how you and me got it all messed up in this game, because we thought, oh, they just traded away their best linebacker. They're starting 2 linebackers we don't even know anything about. The middle of the field is going to be open. I think the thing that we overlooked was the fact that they use 3 safeties all the time, and they love to plug the middle of the field with that. And they did it effectively in this game.
Yeah. Let's look ahead a little bit to Tampa Bay, even though between the 3 of us, we now have 2 different podcasts that come out every week now to talk about the upcoming matchup between First Bite with Ryan Matthews and Jeremy Reisman and myself on, I think we were looking at like per view.
Okay. No? I kind of like it.
I was getting a lot of suggestions including some adequate ones. But that's going to be with me in a rotating cast. Thank you, everyone who really loved what Hamza and Brandon were talking on that podcast. But looking to Tampa Bay, guys, again, just two things stick out in my mind. Number one, it's not going to get easier here. Bucks look pretty good in an opening game. I think they match up a little bit. The Lions match up a little bit better against the Bucks, but at the same time, Baker Mayfield starting the season strong. Lot to fix up in week 2, and again, hopefully you just figure out just redo some of that surfacing in Detroit so guys aren't slipping, and we should be groovy.
Yeah,
no more Brazil games.
The Bucks gave them trouble 2 times last year, right? In the regular season, it was a real tough battle, and then in the playoffs, the Lions I think relatively controlled that game, but it was a 1-score game at the very end. The offense, the Bucks offense seems to be humming right now. It seems to like really be running on all cylinders, whatever car analogy that someone smarter than us can do. And they
which is surprising though, right? Like Dave Canales removed, and it's like, oh no, we're good.
Yeah, and I think
let's keep going.
I think it speaks a lot to Baker Mayfield, and maybe we should be respecting him a little bit more than we are. But it's going to be a different challenge than this past week, right? They're going to take their deep shots, and I think this is where we might see like a bigger test for the Lions secondary. Are they going to be able to keep Chris Godwin and Mike Evans in check? It's going to be. It's not necessarily going to be a tougher matchup than the 2 main receivers that the Rams had for at least a half, but it's going to be a different challenge, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm very excited about it. Defensively, we know the Bucks have been a very good team historically. I don't know how much you can take from their Week 1 defensive performance when they're going against a rookie quarterback, and I mean. I'm looking at the stat line. The Commanders had 138 rushing yards and 4.6 a carry and 3 rushing touchdowns. That kind of sticks out to me right away. And if you remember in the first matchup, Dave Montgomery gets injured in the first half of that game.
Mm-hmm.
Could look a lot different with a healthy Dave Montgomery this time around.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it's also not Matthew Stafford. Like Baker Mayfield looks good, but he's not.
He's more prone to making a mistake. Well, Matthew Stafford makes mistakes too, but.
I do wonder if it's a little bit different of a question. I know we think of them as a good defense, but also they were getting gashed by a rookie quarterback pretty well in this game. I think Jaden Daniels had 260 yards, scrimmage yards, all said and done.
Yeah, I mean they were trailing. I watched a little bit of that game, and then in the second half there were some stat padding yards because of the score differential. But I think for the most part, you look at that Bucks defense, they have some injuries, right? Like. I think Elijah Cansey is on an injured list. They had,
and that's a tough loss for them there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they had Bryce Hall who got injured, one of their defensive backs.
I also think they have not been tested. They were not tested by Washington in their secondary. Like your leader on the day for receiving was Austin Eckler for Washington. I really do think again you want to see
what for Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs or another game for Jamison Williams for that matter.
I am just now realizing that 88 of the 138 rushing yards for the Commanders were from Jaden Daniels. So
yes, yeah, he was their rushing and he was their.
That
rushing
might not
leader,
translate as well as much as you think. Maybe Jared Goff. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
They didn't rush
unless
that well
I'm not
the
saying I
tackles.
fully endorse Hendon
No,
Hooker.
Of course.
How does a man run so unathletically?
You know that
when
answer.
he is
you all
athlete.
know that answer. Very carefully.
It does look like he is running very carefully. Like he is making sure he's
very
running
daintily,
like he doesn't want to tear a single tendon in his body.
He runs like he's in right. he runs like he's in Chariots of Fire. Slow motion.
This is also every NFL podcast's favorite discourse is talking about how quarterbacks run.
Yeah.
All I know is Jared Goff rushing yards hit the over, baby.
Oh boy!
I didn't realize you knew how to bet on that.
All
right.
Very carefully.
Very carefully, yes. We're going to wrap up here. I know this was a kind of a quick one for us. I know we've been going over 70 minutes, and now I think we're finally finishing. Actually, I think we're still over 60. Never mind. It's fine. We are clock enthusiasts here on the Pride of Detroit POD cast. Ryan, Jeremy, it was good to catch up with you guys after this Lions victory. I'm glad Jeremy has survived. Ryan has survived. Most of our staff, I believe, survived in spite of going to the game. But hey, we're off the injury report here. Lots to get to as the week. Stay tuned. Check out Pride of Detroit Direct. Check out the Pride of Detroit POD cast. I'm Chris Perfett at Chris Perfett on Twitter. Jeremy Reisman at Detroit on Lion. Ryan Matthews at Ryan_POD. As always, we will see you Starside.
Recording stopped.
Cool.
Sweet. Has the game started yet?
Well, actually, I don't know because we have direct TV here so I mean, as people know, can probably tell. I'm at our offices in Sherman Oaks. We have direct TV. So
Dang, no college football.
I don't know.
Oh, it has started. It's 4 minutes in. 2 3 and outs. Awesome. So we've missed nothing.
Great. Well, at least it's not like last time where we didn't get off the air until after Aaron Rodgers.
True. We were
left
still
the game.
That's true.
And I'm pretty sure as we finish recording, it's like, hey guys, we should probably go because Aaron Rodgers is getting carded. Are you guys going to check out the Aaron Rodgers documentary?
No. I'm going to watch that Vince McMahon documentary, though. I showed the trailer to my wife, and she was even interested in it. So,
What's up, Dev? Rating us with a party of 20. Congrats on the Bears' first win. I'm sure we're not about to just talk about how much of a fraudulent win that was and how
that was
pathetic
a true
the offense
Bears
was, and how that was just a 2000 Bears win. What's that? Oh, that's
the surrender cobra from Will Levis. After throwing one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Was that? I know we don't think about the Titans usually, but Jesus Christ, I don't think I've heard a guy hyped up as much in the offseason as Will Levis, and now we're just getting this bag of eggs.
No, I mean, listen, the Bears did what they needed to do, which is I mean, here's what the Bears season needs to all be about. They need the defense to carry them early in the season because the offense is going to get better.
Yeah. Well, also, I don't know. Keenan Allen's already got soft tissue injuries. I'm shocked to hear about that.
Did he leave the game?
That's tough.
Did he leave the game and not come back?
I don't know.
I saw him come up
back.
limping after like an end zone run. Yeah.
And also absolutely zero. I mean, it'll take time, but like zero chemistry with Keenan Allen. Like he's the king of like finding soft spots and zones. And I watched a lot of that game yesterday, and it was a lot of like Caleb Williams throwing a ball to where he thought Keenan Allen was going to go, but Keenan Allen's like, why throw it over there where I'm going to get hit by a safety when I can catch it right here kind of thing. And also Rome Odunze is hurt too. Yeah. He's got an MCL injury.
Oh, I did see that. That sucks.
I also think Caleb Williams, at least from what I was seeing as a quarterback, like he looked a little kind of timid to run at times. Like there were points where he's extending plays to the point where I'm just like, why don't you just tuck?
Well, I'm sure they're trying to teach that out of him a little bit.
No,
right?
I know they are, but that's always the fear of it. But at the same time, you got to do what you got to do to get some yardage here.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a rookie quarter. That's a rookie quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think they're going to turn things around offensively. There's too many weapons on that team for it not to happen, but it's a rookie quarterback. It's a new offensive coordinator. It's a lot of new pieces that haven't played together before. It's going to take time. And so what they need to do if they want to make the playoffs this year and make a run at the division, which I think is on the table. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's on the table. It's
definitely now on the table now with Green Bay suddenly looking like Jordan Love is going to miss some significant time.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how they catch the Lions, but I mean, they took it to the Lions last
wild
year.
Card.
Yeah.
I don't think Sam Darnold's going to be playing at this level for every game in Minnesota.
You don't get to play the Giants every week.
No. Like I had to listen to some people. Like I was listening to people today trying to say like, yeah, we got to give Darnold more credit. I'm like, I don't need to give him more credit right now, man. Like come on. But the Giants are one of the worst teams in football, along with the. I really do think the Raiders are still going to be the worst team in football, but.
Kirby Joseph is currently live tweeting Monday Night Football, and so the Jets go 3-and-out without a completed pass from Aaron Rodgers, and he tweets out, "I still got the last pass," and then apparently his first completion resulted in a fumble just now, and he tweets out, "Wait, so if it's a fumble, does that still count as a catch?"
By the way, our old friend Jamal Williams. Probably the sweetest man. First off, shout out to the Saints bodying the
Jesus
Panthers look
Christ.
awful.
Yeah.
I just retweeted this. I did not realize Jamal Williams had cats, and I think he's learned something from us on Victory Monday. He is now tweeting out his cats and calling it Victory Cat Monday. So
Nice.
shout out to Jamal. He was also meeting with kids from like an anime club and stuff. I love it.
Yeah.
I think he got a touchdown yesterday too.
He did.
Yeah.
I tweeted out he technically
see
has
him.
touchdowns in back-to-back games because we all know he got a touchdown in the final game of the season last year.
Yeah. All right, I do got to go. I apologize to everyone. I'm on a pitch count tonight, so I'll catch you all up here soon. Thank you everyone who came in last night too, which was I think we had like 500 people between platforms watching us
Nice.
for the post game. In spite of me accidentally getting an echo in everyone's ear for about like 5 minutes and having to reboot the stream. The Chris Cam was booby trapped. So, but yeah, no, thank you, Jeremy, thank you, Ryan. We'll catch up here soon here, and hopefully have some more streams down the line.
All right.
Yeah, I
Sounds
mean,
good, buddy.
see ya.
Later. Oh, I almost timed that perfectly. All right, I got some alerts to read. I do kind of want to watch this football game, though, so I don't think we're going to be on much longer. I'm trying to get your name right. There you are. All right, where was I? 100 bits from Nick the Greek, who says Sean McVay's back-to-back moral victories, which might be, honestly, Nick the Greek, if you're still here, that might be my favorite one so far. I got a lot of respect for Sean McVay as an offensive mind. I have a lot less respect for him in every other facet. He's a good offensive mind. You're also kind of cocky and a jerk.
Yeah, it's something we didn't bring up on the podcast, though. Like, new defensive coordinator. You know, how much were the Lions prepared for something that they hadn't seen yet?
True. That's a good point. Guys named. Thank you for the 8 months. Says, did you hear the theory about the field on Matt Derry's podcast? I did not. Welcome to hear it if you're still here. Guys named. Wild Brooks, thank you for the 8 months. Subscribe to the channel. Joshua Mercer, 100 bits, says hit the 1,000 mark. Dang! Thank you for all the biddies. MCDC Forever, 16 months subscribe to the channel, says staff is a dog, but not quite enough to beat our Super Bowl champion Lions. Wouldn't that be something? Woodchuck Under 100 bits says Nick the Greek's massive schlaw. What are we doing here, chat? These do I have to turn bits off? What's happening?
I don't know.
Guardian, thank you for the follow. Joshua Mercer, 100 bits says no. Hutch pushed Stafford over a guy on the ground. That's why he got the heat for being Stafford. Hutch pushed Stafford over a guy on the ground, and that's why he got the heat for being dirty. Wasn't even the play that Aiden got called on.
Oh, yeah, I remember that play.
I don't know if I've seen that.
Yeah. I didn't think it was late. I didn't think the push was late or anything like that. It's just that it was like an unfortunate circumstance where he got pushed over his own lineman. So
1,000 mark for subs, man. What does that mean? We don't have 1,000 subs. I'm confused.
maybe at like 1,000 subs that he's purchased.
Oh, you've gifted 1,000 subs? Holy Lord.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Oh, I see it right there. Jesus. Joshua.
Shout out
That's
Joshua
crazy.
Mercer.
Thank you, man. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Monkey81, thank you for the 18-month subscribe to the channel. Again, thank you, that dude Dev, for the 20-person raid. As we've raided Dev a bunch of times, but he's a very talented streamer, even if he is a Chicago Bears fan. Does a lot of Madden stream, not Sims, a lot of Madden. He actually plays the game because he's talented, unlike me, where I just sit there and let the computer do all the work for me. So if you don't follow him, check him out. I swear he's one of the good ones when it comes to Chicago Bears fans. So certainly not the Twitter Bears fans you'll run into. So Nick Coscarelli, 59 months subscribe to the channel, says Packers stink. Last place by themselves. You know, I don't love seeing the Bears and Vikings win on a weekend, but I do kind of like seeing the Packers down there by themselves.
I just really wanted the Bears to lose that game because that felt like a game where it's like, you don't have it figured out yet. You don't deserve to win this game, but also the Titans, what boneheaded plays they were making.
Yeah, they very much lost that game as much as the Bears won it, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I the way they were running the ball in that first half and Chicago just couldn't do anything on offense. I thought the game was in the books when it was 17 nothing at half, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or 17-3 maybe. Did they get a field goal?
Maybe.
Something. I don't know. I thought they put something up on the board, but
yeah.
Jeremy, a month ago there were people when JJ McCarthy was still healthy. So like a month and a half ago there were people that were like, "Oh, like maybe the NFC North has like the best stable of quarterbacks," and we're a week in, and it's like, "Oh, maybe not."
Right. Yeah, because it certainly
Not
wasn't
right
a
now.
great second-year debut for Jordan Love. Not that he was god awful, but a lot of inaccurate passes.
A lot of like just general weirdness with that game too, right? So it almost kind of felt a little bit East Rutherfordy to me from preseason week 1.
Yeah.
But I don't think either of the quarterbacks looked particularly good in that game.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But I don't know how much of that too was like Thursday.
Right.
Like we watched Mahomes and and Lamar, and then the next game was
it's just like,
okay.
They're traveling really far.
Sure.
There's a lot of weird factors with that game.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And plus just week 1, right? We say it every year. Week 1 is weird. Sometimes the Bengals lose to a Patriots team that everyone thought was like worst in the league.
Yeah, there's that happens.
The Bills looked like they were about to lose.
Yeah, there's something to be said about how impressive Arizona's offense looked yesterday. They're going to have to win in shootouts for sure.
Yep.
But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's interesting to just think about how like week 1. I don't know if week 1 has always been this sloppy or if week 1 is just kind of like a product of a different looking preseason.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I'd be interested in any historical data that kind of just talks about what week 1 looks like in general. But like when Chris says something about like, was it like net passing yards or something like that? Like
we're way down.
It's lowest, in week 1 since like 2000, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I think it's interesting, something to consider. I don't think there's anything to be like, oh man, if the Lions just played their starters in the preseason one game, it'd be fine.
Right. And Dan Campbell's even asked about that today, and he's like, no.
Yeah.
He's like, I personally speaking, I put much more value on 60 snaps in training camp against our own team than 20 against another team in the preseason.
Yeah.
And remember, you're playing vanilla football in the preseason too, so it's not like you're running your playbook even. You're running a very condensed version of it.
100%.
I will say like,
I was gonna say, or you could run into a situation like Pittsburgh did in the final week, where it's like, oh, sure, you're playing your starters, but you're playing guys who probably aren't on the 53-man roster. So it's like, are we building good habits out of that?
Yeah. The other thing I was gonna say is like, there's also been just a very long trend now of training camp being way different. The rules and regulations are getting stricter and stricter, and
more stringent. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, I don't know why it would affect this particular year more than previous years, but it has been trending that way for a very long time, and things are getting more and more. I don't know. Well, you're able to do less and less in training camp, and so maybe that has an impact on week 1. I think in general week 1 is just typically pretty sloppy, and we need to. That's
what I think. Yeah, that's where I kind of like.
Yeah.
Defer to what I think the data probably says. And there really isn't a big enough sample size to say, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like we haven't been doing it long enough to say like definitively.
Yep. All right. Looks like Monday Night Football's heating up, which means I want to go out and start watching it. Joshua Mercer, thank you for the 100 bit too. Also says, what a great year to hit that mark, the year we win the Super Bowl.
Love that. My God. I have one last thing, Jeremy.
Okay.
Who do you think had the worst Sunday
of any team
in the NFL? Just in general, anybody. I mean, like it could be a person, it could be a team.
Panthers are pretty low down there.
That was tough.
Like any sort of like, okay, Bryce Young didn't have any help last year. They needed a year to settle in. Let's hold off on our thoughts about Bryce Young and the Panthers, and maybe they made some interesting hires in their coaching staff that seem a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And then it's just like any sort of like, let's just see how year 2 is, flushed down the toilet immediately.
Did you see Derek Brown potentially out for the entire season?
Oh God,
with
I
a knee
did.
injury?
Yeah, I didn't.
Oh my gosh, like the hit keep coming. Yeah, I certainly fair candidate. I'm gonna say Drake had the worst NFL Sunday because he found out yesterday that in 5 months at halftime of the Super
He's
Bowl
gonna
with
get dunked on in the
millions
Super
of people
Bowl.
watching, he's going to get called a pedophile at halftime of the Super Bowl. Imagine somebody scheduling that. They're like, hey, guess what? In 5 months, someone's going to call you a pedophile in front of
the biggest national TV audience.
and there's not a damn thing you can do about it.
I mean, he's gonna do that song, right? Like, there's a 0% chance he's not doing that song.
I want to know, but you know how like artists don't typically play like their entire song, right?
Right.
Like they're trying to like fit in the hits.
Okay,
like,
so maybe they don't fit that part in.
like the whole song is about him though. Like what
Yeah.
part are they? I don't know.
Well, it's
Like,
it's saying the word pedophile. I think on Fox is probably the part where they're like, all right, you can do the song, just don't do that part.
yeah, but I saw the news that he was performing halftime at the Super Bowl. I was like, oh wow, that's checkmate. Like that's game over.
I mean, listen, it was over a long time ago. I'm not even that in tune with it, and I know that Drake has been cooked for the past, I don't know, how long has this been going on? 4 months?
Since May, yeah. So, but yeah, objectively the worst, the worst Sunday of anybody related to the NFL.
100%.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
You ready to get
Monday
out of
Night
here?
Football. Yeah.
Go watch the Monday Night Footballs. Bunch of content coming to the site tomorrow. We got some film breakdowns that I know we're cooking. I know you got some PFF stats that aren't just grades coming. We didn't do snap counts today because I'm tired and overworked, and I'll probably get to that tomorrow.
Yeah. I saw how Mitch Albom looked last night. Tired at the end of the game. I
Yeah.
saw like the JMO press conference of him walking and like Mitch Albom and turning around. It's like, oh wow, you look sleepy.
Yeah, it's weird without like the evil version goatee that was sporting for a while. Like that thing is gone.
Evil Abed.
Yeah, the evil Abed goatee was not there. I don't know if that's like, if it's like my mustache, you just pull it out kind of in the winter towards the end of the season.
Yeah, you're looking for something different. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
But anyways, yeah, go watch Monday Night Football.
Yeah, that's all we got. All right, guys. Have a good rest of your night. We'll see you guys tomorrow for midweek mailbag. Tomorrow afternoon, like 1 o'clock-ish.